Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, February 7th, 2022, 10 a.m. Central, approximately, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. So, we're getting to that last section that was prompted to us in the DMG Grappling, Pummeling, and Overbearing. Three sections were mentioned in the non-player character record sheets product from TSR in 1980. And the third one was a section on page 72 and 73 of the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And that was absolutely the one that I wanted to put off till third. So I dealt with the other two already. Loyalty and morale, and yeah, heck, now I'm having trouble remembering what the other one was. But loyalty and morale, and facts and traits from page 100 to 101 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's a previous video. You can check it out. But the grappling, pummeling, and overbearing section is one. Morale and loyalty. Grappling, pummeling, overbearing mentioned in this other product. And they bring it up there because, players, through their player characters, like to grapple, pummel, and overbear NPCs. It's almost the sole reason most dungeon masters put NPCs in front of player characters so they can be grappled, pummeled, and overborne. Overborne? Overbeared? Overbearinged? Just kidding, of course, but it's a stat that is worth putting on a sheet, considering how often tavern fights seem to break out, and considering also, wouldn't it be nice if player characters didn't just kill everything? Wouldn't it be nice if player characters didn't always have to worry that any NPC that they were going to come into conflict with was out to kill them? Maybe just take them down without bleeding them out? And it's a good sentiment, for sure. You don't want the world to be life or death every moment of the day, right? Your setting. Maybe you do. I don't know. Hey, by the way, check out the Chet Minton shirt. I got this pre-COVID, and I wear it from time to time. I've probably worn it on the show before, but I like to mention when a artist friend of mine is happens to be represented on the shirt I'm wearing on the show. I like to mention them. I'll try to dig up a link for the show notes to his T-shirt and everything else store. You can get yourself some artwork from Chet Minton. Wonderful guy. Fantastic. I kind of, he's a lot more ornate in his artwork than the nickname would suggest, but I once called him the spiritual successor to Howard Pyle, because when you see a lot of his artwork in line drawing form, it really has that maybe even a Brandywine School influence to it. Just, I think it's fantastic stuff. In any event, we're looking at grappling, pummeling, and overbearing. It's on pages 72 and 73 of the DMG, and it starts off It basically starts off the non-lethal and weaponless combat procedures section before we get to the combat tables. It's most of a page and 3/4, so we'll go through it kind of quickly. Up front, though, I also want to say, didn't use it a lot. Didn't get this detailed with this sort of thing, even back in original D&D and advanced D&D and the weird section period in between when we were going from original to advanced, and it was a combination of both. Even then, um, we were using ability score checks and what they started calling in third edition um, opposed ability score checks. So you might roll a 20-sider and add your strength bonus or dexterity bonus, depending on which was higher. Maybe you're a scrappy little fast fighter, or maybe you're a get in there and pound them away fighter, but, brawler, whatever. But the point being, if you just both roll that and whoever wins, maybe the best out of 2 out of 3, or maybe you've got to decisively win at least 5 rolls before the fight is over. And, I think we even experimented at times with saying that depending on your constitution, you could only be in a fight for so long before you were just, not, we didn't use the word fatigued, or maybe we did at times, but just exhausted, so tired you couldn't effectively fight anymore, or you got minuses, or you didn't get your bonus anymore if you had one, or there were times we experimented with that stuff, but it was fast and fun to just roll a couple of d20s and move on, and not that later editions didn't have additional things that they added into it. Feats, notably in third edition. In second edition, there was a class for everything at one point, right? So that you had brawlers, and you had, and of course, even back in first edition, you had monks. And I think this section ends with a note about monks. Let's get into it. Non-lethal and weaponless combat procedures. It is not uncommon for players to be weaponless at some stage of a game, or for better players to wish to attack an opponent barehanded in order to most effectively neutralize that opponent's potential. Whether to subdue or slay when neutralized is another matter. 3 basic attack modes are recommended: pummel, grapple, overbear. Each method of attack is explained separately, and each has its own tables and modifiers. You can already see where this is going to get complicated if you're not familiar with it already. Strap in. Variable applicable to all pummeling, grappling, and overbearing attacks. The attacker takes the number of the column he or she normally uses for weapon attacks, 1 being that for the lowest levels, 2 being that for the next group of levels, and so on. To this number, he or she adds the score of a secretly rolled d6, i.e. 1, 2, 6. The defender does the same, but the die score is that of a d4. The attacker may use this variable for 1, a bonus to his or her base chance to pummel, grapple, overbear, or 2, a bonus to the score rolled for a successful pummeling, grappling, or overbearing attack. The defender may use the variable for 1, a penalty, subtraction, to the attacker's base chance to pummel, grapple, or overbear, or 2, a penalty, subtraction, to the attacker's pummeling, grappling, or overbearing attack which has succeeded. The decision as to how to use the variable must be made prior to each attack. Unconscious parties gain no such variable. Pummel. Now that affects all 3 of these types of attacks. Pummel. The attack form is aimed at battering an opponent into unconsciousness. It can be used with fists or dagger pommel, as in pummel, as weapons. 25% of damage sustained is actual. The remaining 75% is restored at a rate of 1 hit point per round. Whenever an opponent reaches 0 hit points, unconsciousness occurs. It lasts for 1 round plus 1 round for every point of damage beyond 0 hit points which has been sustained. 4 hit points equals 5 rounds of unconsciousness. An unconscious opponent can be trussed or slain in 1 round. No rolls needed. Determination of first attack initiative. First attack initiative is determined by surprise, charging to attack, higher dexterity, or higher die roll in that order. Whichever first occurs determines the first attack for the round, so, in most cases, the pummeling attacker will go first in the first round. Base score to hit. The base score on percentile dice, is opponent AC value times 10 to arrive at a percentage chance to hit. AC 10, and remember, this is not like modern AC where it's upside down. Or maybe this is upside down. This was first, though. AC 10 equals 100%, AC 9, 90%, all the way to AC rating of 0 and minus numbers which indicate no chance or a negative chance to score a hit. The base chance to hit is modified as follows. Attacker's dexterity per point plus 1%, attacker's strength per point over 15 plus 1%, attacker's AC per point with negative AC being treated as a positive by type. Asterisk down bottom says magical protection such as rings, bracers, cloaks do not count as AC, so ignore them. Encumbrance equals AC 10. Going back up, that is, attacker's AC per point with negative AC being treated as a positive by type plus 1%. Opponent slowed plus 10%. Opponent stunned plus 20%. Opponent prone without shield or ready weapon and or helpless, automatic hit. Opponent base movement over 12 inches, minus 5%. Double asterisk on this one says do not count if unable to move freely. Down, cornered, encumbered, etc. Opponent hasted, parenthetical says, includes a speed potion, minus 10%. In each round of weaponless melee, there will be 2 pummeling attacks, and possibly several blows per attack. The attacker determines if a strike is successful, and then whether or not it does any damage and how much, if any. Percentile dice rolls are rolled, and the score is modified as shown below. The pummeling table is then consulted. Attacker's strength per point over 12 plus 1%. Per 10% over 18, add another plus 2%. Using wooden butt or mailed fist, plus 5%. Using metal pummel, plus 10%. Opponent stunned, plus 20%. Opponent helpless, plus 30%. Active defender per point of dexterity over 14, employing a shield. Per point of dexterity over 14, minus 2%. If employing a shield as an active defender, minus 10%. Leather or padded armor, minus 10%. Chain, ring, scale, studded mail, minus 20%. Magical cloak or ring, minus 30%. Banded plate or split mail, minus 40%. Helmet open-faced, minus 5%. Helmet nasaled but otherwise open, minus 10%. Helmet visored or slitted, minus 20%. Pummeling table. Now that we got all the modifiers, we've got the general modifier at the beginning, and now we've got these specific to pummeling modifiers. We get to the pummeling table. Adjusted score. Remember, we're rolling percentage dice. We've got result and then hit points of damage scored. And notice this isn't a die roll on the damage scored. So if you roll under 1, blow misses, opponent may counter none. As far as hit points concerned, 1 to 20% ineffective blows, strike again, none. As far as hit points of damage scored, 21 to 40% glancing blow, off balance. Notice the parent or the asterisk series ends. Determination of next strike must be made. So if you had extra attacks coming or extra blows coming, ends. You're off balance. 2 plus the strength bonus of the attacker per hit points of damage scored. 41 to 60, glancing blows strike again. 4 plus strength bonus on the damage scored. 61 to 80, solid punch, but off balance. Again, series ends, but you do 6 plus strength bonus points of damage. 81 to 100, solid punch, strike again. 8 plus the strength bonus for damage. Over 100, crushing blow. Opponent is stunned. 10 plus strength bonus. Double asterisk says opponent unable to attack for 1 full round. So you have stunned them. That's pummeling. Not impossibly complicated, but undoubtedly it is more than if you just were to do something like, roll a couple of d20s and add your strength or dexterity bonus. Whichever rolls higher wins that round. I find that very simple, very fast. That's how I do it. You can see this is a lot. Um, but let's face it, if you really enjoy combat, if you really enjoy the strategy of combat and the tactics on the ground in the moment, and you're looking for, but none of this had little things that said, what if I jump up on a table? What if I do? So you can describe all this stuff, but in the end, whatever you roll is still what you roll. And there are bonuses and stuff that you can get by wading into. Do you jump into a brawl in a tavern wearing full plate mail? What are you doing wearing full plate mail in a tavern in the first place? So, granted, down in the dungeon and you're running up against some orcs and you wind up with a bunch of them trying to attack you. And there are sections too or situations where overbearing is something that a bunch of small creatures, kobolds, might wish to try on somebody in plate mail because they just have no chance of getting their small weapons through. So, yeah, there are situations where this more complex system is important to bring to bear. You be the judge. I like the easy rolls. Hey, Rick. Hey, Sarah. How you doing? Good to see you both. This all sounds so math. How do these percentages work? Well, let me move on to Grapple, and we'll talk about that one next because there's more. Grapple. The attack form is aimed at holding the opponent and rendering him or her helpless. Damage sustained is 25% actual and 75% incidental, which is restored at 1 hit point per round. As in pummeling attacks, a score of 0 equals unconsciousness, 1 round per 1 round plus 1 round for each point minus damage sustained. So, 4 hit points under, you're out for 5 rounds. Determination of first attack initiative, surprise charging. To attack, higher dexterity, higher die roll in that order, very much like pummeling. Base score to grapple, multiply attacker's armor class by 10, ignoring magical devices, but adding 1 for each plus 1 of the magical armor to find a percentage chance that from 100% to 0%. Note, the attacker cannot grapple if either or both hands are holding anything. The base chance to grapple is modified as follows. Attacker's dexterity per point, plus 1%. Defender's armor protection is leather or padded, 10%. Chain, ring, or scale, plus 20%. Banded plate or splint, plus 30%. You can see there's some slight variations to the modifiers that they used with pummeling. I should note, too, note the attacker cannot grapple if either or both hands are holding anything. You know, there's a classic trope of having a weapon in one hand and grappling someone with the other and then threatening to kill them if everybody doesn't back off and or harm them at least in some way. So the system already kind of takes that off the table at the top. Maybe we could say that's a different kind of grappling, but at some point, this sort of trope needs to be addressed with the same system, right? Opponent slowed or stunned, plus 20%. Opponent base movement, 3 inches faster, minus 10% per 3. Opponent hasted includes a speed potion, minus 20%. Some of these things are quite the same as with the pummeling. In each round of grappling combat, there will be an attack and a counter. This is different. Any existing hold automatically goes first until broken. Once it is determined that a grappling attack succeeds, the percentile dice must be rolled again to find out what hold is gained. The dice roll is modified as follows. Attacker's dexterity per point plus 1%, attacker's strength per point plus 1%, attacker's strength per 10% over 18, just plus 1% here, and unlike the plus 2 in the previous modifier table for pummeling. Opponent helpless, plus 30%. Per 10% weight difference attacker, plus or minus 5%. Per 10% height difference for the attacker, plus or minus 5%. Notice the asterisk, and when we check at the bottom of the table, halved if prone. Opponent dexterity per point over 14, minus 2%. Opponent strength per point over 12, minus 1%, 10% over 18, minus 1%. Opponent wearing banded or plate, minus 10%. Wearing a gorget or helmet, minus 10%. Opponent using a shield, minus 10%. Let's continue on here for the last bit. Bonuses and penalties are totaled, and then the result is added to the percentile dice roll. The grappling table is then consulted for the result, and here we go with that. Adjusted score result and HP or special damage scored. Again, the rolls go up in different increments than the pummeling table. Under 21, 21 to 40, 41 to 55, so only a 15% jump there. Same here, 56 to 70, 71 to 85, 86 to 95. We're dropping to a 10% at the top end, over 95%. The different results are waist, clinch, an opponent may counter, arm lock, / forbear, / elbow smash, hand finger lock bite, so hand or finger lock or a bite, bear hug or a trip, headlock or a flip or throw, stranglehold or a headbutt, kick, knee, gorge. And all of these in ascending order as far as hit points. And again, 25% of it's real damage, 75% temporary that can be shrugged off over rounds, 1 point per. 1 plus a strength bonus on the elbow smash, 2 plus a strength bonus 3. Then it jumps up when you get to a headlock, flip, or throw. 5 plus a strength bonus, 6 plus a strength bonus for the headbutt or stranglehold, and the opponent stunned as a result. 8 plus strength bonus for the knee kick or gorge. Eye gorge. Hate to have that eye gorge. Any hold shown remains in effect from round to round unless the opponent scores a higher percentage hold, i.e. arm lock breaks a wrist clinch. A hand finger lock breaks an arm lock, and so on and so forth. Damage accrues until the hold is broken or until the holder elects to try for a different hold. The opponent may still inflict damage by lesser hold results shown after the double slashes. These might result in both opponents falling to the ground and continuing their grapple there. Note, if the opponent is stunned, a second attack may immediately be made, and the stunned opponent cannot counter for 1 round. That's grappling. Again, a bit more complex than is perhaps easily wielded by a DM at the table in a moment. You get off in the weeds sometimes where players will insist that one bonus or modifier applies when the DM doesn't see it that way, because if we're doing this in our mind, and even if we're using miniatures on a table, one person's description of how a hold is working compared to someone else's description, while they're saying the same things, may be seeing very different things in their minds. Let's move on to Overbearing. We'll knock this out real fast. This attack form aims at quickly taking an opponent to a prone position, incidentally inflicting damage and allowing either a pummel or grapple follow-up attack. The attacker can have either or both hands otherwise employed, carrying a shield, a weapon, etc. 50% of the damage inflicted is actual rather than 25. The balance is restored at a rate of 1 point per round. Once an opponent is overborne, that's the word, some other form of combat must take place. Determination of first attack initiative, surprise, charging to attack, higher dexterity, higher die roll in that order. Attacker attempting to overbear need not go first to so attack. Base score to hit, same as grappling attack. If overbearing attack succeeds, roll percentage dice again and modify the resulting total by the following. Attacker strength, again, we're back to what it was like with grappling or with pummeling, plus 1%, but plus 2% per 10% over 18 strength. Opponent slowed or 1 foot held, plus 10%. Rushing or leaping to attack, plus 15%. Opponent stunned or both feet held, plus 20%. The weight difference and the height difference, again, but plus 10% or minus 10% in the weight difference category, and still plus 5 or minus 5 for height. Opponent strength per point over 14, minus 1% per 10% over 18, minus 2%. Opponent's dexterity per point over 14, minus 2%. Opponent braced against the overbearing, minus 10%. There is a asterisk on the opponent dexterity per point over 14, which is clarified nowhere around this table. That may be a carryover from the editing, but I would guess, well, let's see, on the previous table, half if proned. I think that's what we're looking at there. And overbearing table. Then we move on to the big roll. Adjusted die score, the result, hit points of damage scored. Here we're looking at the 20% on these categories. So under 21, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, 81 to 100, over 100. We've got bounce off or avoid, opponent may counter, slip down or grab leg. Neither of these does any hit points of damage. Opponent staggered, attack again, 1 plus a strength bonus. Opponent knocked 2 knees, 2 plus a strength bonus. Opponent knocked 2 hands and knees, 3 plus a strength bonus. Opponent knocked flat, stunned for 1 turn, 4 plus a strength bonus. So you notice the overbearing overall doesn't do as much damage as a straight up pummel or even a grapple. But you get to follow up with one or the other attacks as well. And I guess you could follow it up with a melee attack too. So overbear and then attack with a melee weapon and do some serious damage, right? General notes: multiple opponent attacks. It is possible for as many opponents as will physically be able to attack a single adversary to engage in pummeling, grappling, and overbearing attack modes. Attack order must first be determined. Attack from behind negates the shield and dexterity components of the defending creature. Hits are determined, then results in order of attack. Monsters using these attack modes will choose the most effective if they are human or humanoid or have above average intelligence. Otherwise, they will use modes in a random fashion. Creatures will always attack to overbear if they do not use weapons, except bears. So everyone overbears except the bears. and similar monsters who seek to crush opponents with hugging attacks, which are considered grappling. Opponents with weapons used normally, if the opponent of a grappling, pummeling, or overbearing attack has a weapon, the opponent will always strike first unless the attacker has surprise. Any weapon hit does no damage, but it does indicate that the attacker trying to grapple, pummel, or overbear has been fended off or driven off, and the attack is unsuccessful. The weapon wielder then has the opportunity to strike at the weaponless one for real if he or she so chooses. Surprised opponents with weapons have no chance to fend off strike for a fending off strike unless the attacker must use all surprise segments to close to grapple, pummel, or overbear. And here's that last note at the end for monks. Even if grappled, pummeled, or overborne, monks are able to conduct open hand combat normally until stunned or unconscious. So that pretty much sums it all up for those who are interested in that whole mode of combat. Again, very easy for you to just use D20s and pluses or minuses based on strength or dexterity and move on rather than do all of the math involved in these. If you can do it up front, that's great, but let's face it, even if you put it on every NPC sheet as to what their pluses or minuses are, you've still got things like the height or weight differential to try to figure out on the spot. And if, you know, it's more work. It's just more work. You can see that without me even saying it, I'm sure. Sarah asks in the chat, what happens if someone attacks someone who is grappling someone else? Is the grappler disadvantaged? Well, that's a good question. It's not directly addressed in what we read, but I would have to assume that it's like attacking from the flank, so there'd be no dexterity and no shield advantage. Obviously, if they're already grappling someone else, they have their hands free, so there's no shield anyway. I would have to also suggest that any of the opponent bonuses would be lost because they're busy grappling someone else. Uh, I guess if they're aware of the other people coming to attack them, I would probably give them a chance to leave off that grapple and engage in the other one so they get full advantage of their pluses or minuses as a defender if they so choose to do that. So that's what I'd do. Um, Whenever it's not directly addressed, we make it up, right? And we try to base it off what has already been told to us, right? Um, but two rolls, boom. Uh, I would say in the two roll system that I suggest using or that I used to use, I would just not allow any pluses or minuses for and I might even give them a -5 for being already engaged if they don't want to let go of the other grapple. So keep it simple, keep it moving, keep it fast. Well, the clock on the wall says it's about time for me to go, so I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody who popped into the chat today, and thank you for the questions. I do appreciate it. Thank you for the good mornings. Good mornings, right? This has been a look-see at the Dungeon Master's Guide, Grappling, Pummeling, and Overbearing Rules in the DMG on pages 72 and 73. Don't forget the show streams live on Twitch each Monday at 10 a.m. Central and is then archived over on YouTube. If you're checking us out on Twitch, by all means, follow the channel and chime in on the chat stream. It's always a pleasure to have extra people talking and asking questions or giving comments for how they run things and whatnot. It's always a pleasure to have more folks. I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Links provided in the show notes. Tom Tellis of Fat Dragon Games, Rick Hershey of Fat Goblin Games, Carlos Lysing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Farndon of the Antipodean D20, and of course, as always, DM extraordinaire, Shane Bradley. Check out our stuff over on DriveThruRPG. I think we still have things at half off, so this little picture here should be accurate. We've got lots of stuff over there. Be sure to check out those things that are neutral as far as system, and those things that were made for one system that you can easily convert to others. 30 Things Can Happen is a beautiful system neutral book that you'll enjoy. Once again, thanks for checking out the OK Grognard Show. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.